Everybody, and welcome to the Concord School. For those of you who closely follow our agenda, we have a little bit of a blunder tonight. Our first order of business must be to seat the Concord School Committee because its composition has changed. We have a new member, so that is our first order of business, and after that we'll get to public comment. We apologize. I know many of you know that we have been managing significant technical difficulties here in the school district this week, far beyond the normal kinds of things that we manage. So
It's an understatement, but okay.
So in any event, so I apologize that we were unable to update and change the agenda. So our first order of business is, in fact, like I said, the seating of the Concord School Committee. I can't make a motion, so if someone could make a motion to seat Mr.
Supposed to.
Oh,
That's what I do all this.
yeah, great.
So I'm requesting a Concord School Committee member move the motion to seat the Concord School Committee members by name. Following this, a request will be made for nomination. Oh, we're holding on chairs till later. Yep. So I need a motion to include the Concord School Committee members as to recognize Alexa Anderson, Andrew Herchek, Tracy Morano, Cynthia Rainey, and Carrie Rankin as members of the Concord School Committee.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, welcome, Andrew.
Welcome, Andrew.
Welcome, Andrew. It's official.
So normally we would also elect a chair and a vice chair at this meeting. However, because the Carlisle elections aren't even until tomorrow, and we don't.
They're May 21st.
What?
They're May 21st.
Oh, okay. They're not even until.
The town meeting is May 13th, and
Okay.
the elections are the.
So they're, sorry. I think there's a meeting of the Carlisle School Committee tomorrow. I'm getting my dates confused. So the Carlisle election is not for several weeks. So we don't know who the members will be. I know Ms. Patel is not seeking re-election, so we're likely to have several new members. And we've been talking with the MASC, who recommended that we should first and foremost look at our policy to ensure that this kind of gap doesn't, if it happens again, that we don't in fact seat the committee until we have, or not seat the committee, but elect the leadership until we have all of the players in seats. So I would entertain a motion to delay the election of a new chair and vice chair until we get our Carlisle members in place.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that motion carries. It needed 2/3. Okay, so with that, I will open public comment. I'm going to give the speech that Tracy normally gives about public comment, just so everyone here is on the same page. So our public comment period per our policy will be a period of 20 minutes. As a reminder, this is a meeting in the public, but not with the public. So the school committee does not respond to any comments made during this time. If you're in the room and you would like to speak, you can submit a blue form. You guys have all done that, and you will be called on to speak. If you are on Zoom, we ask that you use the raise hand feature. When called to speak, you can approach the microphone. You can state your name and address before you speak. And our best practice is generally we go from comments in the room to comments on Zoom and back and forth. And just as a reminder, usually this is my role, but tonight it will be Ms. Morano's role. We do keep our public comment to strictly to 3 minutes for each person. You will hear I use a duck as my ringtone. I don't know what Ms. Morano uses,
I'm not sure.
but you'll hear
silence, but you'll hear it.
You'll hear a loud noise, and that will indicate that your time is up.
We don't have any more forms.
Oh.
I think we're.
I think that I'll be really clear. We're not going to get to all of these anyway. So I don't. We don't have chairs.
Bob's helping with the chairs.
Okay.
We also don't have forms out there, but I think
Yeah,
we
we're
have
going to
20
have.
minutes worth, most
Yes.
likely.
Okay. So when I call your name, again, you can approach the microphone. this person has worse penmanship than me. I think it's a Michael, and I think you live at High Pine Circle in Concord. I can't make out your last name. Oh, and there you are. All right, Michael, you have 3 minutes.
Mike Punzalan, High Pine Circle. Yes, that was terrible. I'm here to follow up on a recent email to the school committee on the topic of AP English. In those emails, I asked the committee to study the decline in AP English pass rates from 90% in 2014 to 70% in 2023, talk about what inferences we might make about English at CCHS and what steps the committee will take to ensure a reversal of that trend. Sorry, I'm out of breath. Thank you, Superintendent Hunter, for your email. I really appreciate it. Happy to hear you've started update to the room. Started working on a plan with the CCHS co-principals on investigation and plan. Look forward to an interim update. To the school committee itself, I think it would be really valuable to hear from you as well on the topic. Again, I'm not asking for micromanagement or knee-jerk changes. Rather, I'm asking about things I'd expect from any productive and healthy management relationship. Specifically, I think it would be useful to hear on, first, like, how can we be sure that the mitigation plan is on track? Of course, on this question, we'll rely heavily on Dr. Hunter and their plan, but year-long feedback cycles are long. So, if we don't hear again until the next English session, then it'll be hard to judge. So are there any intermediate sort of milestones that we can hit or indicators that will tell us that the plan is working? Secondly, how can we detect declines like this more quickly? So I was surprised to kind of unearth or find this my own, sort of just copying and plotting things in sheets. At other places I've worked, maybe some not overbearing monitoring or regular check-ins. Like, these are things that benefit the whole community, so I don't think it's some like panopticon. It's really just, how can we know like the state of the schools? And thirdly, at this given time, are there other opportunities for improvement? Like, to be clear, I'm only here to advocate for my daughters and students in the school district. I know everyone is trying their best. Excuse me, I'm just waiting for my car. My wife and I moved to Concord specifically for the quality of the schools. I'm thrilled at all the things that we do. I'm not asking for cuts or anything. I realize there's a lot of personalities at play. And I am also very happy to hear of our success in STEM education. I would just love to make sure to see that for all subjects, and I'm sure with attention improvement and transparency, we'll continue like our tradition of grade schools in Concord. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Next, we'll go to our Zoom audience. If you wish to speak, I'd like to see a raised hand feature. I'm not presently seeing any, so I'll stick to the room. Okay, now I am seeing a Janet C. Walker.
So I'm going to make a comment on Janet's behalf. My name is Zakia Obas, Boston, Massachusetts. On April 30th, during the Concord Town Meeting, Ms. Alexa Anderson, the chair of Concord Public Schools, misrepresented MECO PTG. During her presentation, Ms. Alexa Anderson stated neither the MECO representatives on school committee nor MECO PTG had achieved consensus regarding the naming of the middle school. No feedback was officially shared with Alexa or the school committee on behalf of MECO PTG regarding our thoughts on naming the middle school. Furthermore, the school committee did not reach out to MECO PTG for an official statement regarding our stance on naming of the middle school. Why would Ms. Anderson comment the stance of MECO PTG in regards of naming the middle school without any prior official communication? Diversity, inclusion, and equity, and belonging for our students of color in the MECO program are paramount concern of MECO PTG. In our view, diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging remains MECO PTG's focus. And frankly, today, Concord is averse to embracing diverse cultures and frankly, the history, like remarkable Ellen Garrison, in what made Concord. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Mari Weinberg.
I'm going to pass my comment to Connie Levine, because she came tonight to make a comment, but you ran out of blue papers, so she couldn't sign one. So I'm passing the microphone to Connie Levine.
Thank you, Mayor. Connie Levine, I live on Stowe Street, lived in Concord 48 years, graduate of CCHS. And, a little louder? Yes, okay, sorry. I'm very concerned about some of the things I heard at the town meeting, one being this list of 1,000+ names that was submitted to the school committee that your representative stated was not even counted or looked at to see how many of these people were Concord voters, because I have to believe that there were more names on that list than there were people naming the Concord Middle School. So you've basically misstated to not only to your committee, but to the townspeople what these counts were. And that's something that's, to me, it means that you have to go back and count those and redo your numbers. The other thing is that, you know, I feel you're being handed on a silver platter something to improve the diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion by naming the school Ellen Garrison. I looked in your mission statement, and it doesn't make any mention of that. The only place I could find it was in the school improvement plan. You had it listed that it was something you needed to work on. And I said to myself, well, what better way to work on it is to name the middle school after Ellen Garrison. And I could visualize her motto, educate, 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 in a silver hanging model right in the hallway when you walk into the school, in the entryway. So you've been handed a tremendous opportunity, and the townspeople, the Board of Selectmen, the League of Women Voters have all told you that, but you don't listen to them. So I'm asking you to give it another shot. I mean, one of the problems you had with your process was you didn't engage in conversion, because you're not supposed to just say, send us one name. You're supposed to ask people, name 1, 2, 3 names or 5 names, and then you build conversions that way. That's how you do the brainstorming.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wilson Kerr. Oh, and I still don't see anyone on Zoom. I'm not ignoring you all. I just don't see any hands raised.
That's a first. Wilson Kerr, 20 Damon Street, West Concord. So many of you at town meetings saw me propose a motion to amend the current warrant. And my assertion then was that the language as it is asking for one thing, which is to rename the school. It has been named, it needs to be renamed the Ellen Garrison Middle School. And I understand that there is a ton of passion for that. There's a ton of passion for it in the room. I also understand that there is a school committee who was elected, and there is process and their side of things. And I see this as two sides being very polarized, and I try to run out what is the end of this? Where does it stop? On one side, it seems that it will not stop. Someone literally told me in the foyer after the vote, and there was a group of people obviously very excited about the outcome of the vote on the warrant after my motion was defeated. And they said, we'll wait. Doesn't matter how long it takes. We'll bulldoze that sign. And someone actually said that to me. And that seems to be a very extreme position. And on the other side, the school committee, you can imagine how they are locked into their position. And so what I asked for what I tried to do is open the door to compromise, open the door to thoughtful consideration, to the key of a trap that can only be used wearing, not wearing boxing gloves. You have to use love to open this. And I know that's a big ask of everyone here who has one thing they want to get accomplished, and maybe it's a huge ask of the school committee, who I'm sure has a lot of letters and opinions that they should, you know, no retreat, no surrender. So I hope that the school committee will consider opening their heart to a compromise, to something that educates our children. My daughter's going to be in that school, and I hope that the other side, the DEI Commission and those who support Ellen Garrison, and by the way, she's an incredible woman, she deserves being honored in this town deeply, will also open their hearts to, if a compromise is brokered, and I asked this of Joe when we had coffee, that it would, you know, fully consider that, so we can somehow move past this as a town and heal. And maybe that's a huge ask, but I hope everyone involved will consider it. Thank you.
Joe Lauren.
Joe Lauren, 134 Southfield Road. This is going to sound very familiar given I'm following these comments, but I'm going to make them anyway just to reinforce things. I wanted to just make 4 brief points and then a suggestion. The first is I respect what I've found and what I've learned about the Garrison family, and I believe they are worthy of recognition by our town. And I refer to the Garrison family because it seems to me that Ellen's father, who, as we know, was a freed slave and a patriot who stood on the North Bridge, and Ellen's brother, who actually became a superintendent of schools, seem at least as worthy of recognition. So I respect the family, and I think they should be honored. I believe the recognition that I think is already planned for an Ellen Garrison Day and in the Concord 250 celebration will send important messages about our town's values. I have met with a couple of the folks, at least, from the Stand Up for Ellen group, and I respect them and believe they are well-intentioned. That was point 1. Point 2, second, I also respect our school committee, who are hardworking members of our community and perform a vital but often thankless job. Third, I've been concerned that with the new single middle school that we are going to lose the recognition of 2 other important people in our history, Sanborn and Peabody, whom I also understand were strong voices against slavery. Fourth, I'm concerned, as Wilson pointed out, that regardless of the outcome of tonight's discussion and those going forward, the decision will continue to leave our community divided. Therefore, like Wilson, I'm going to suggest a compromise, that we retain the name Concord Middle School, which is consistent with the naming policy and precedent like Concord Carlisle High School, and instead we encourage the school committee to use important parts of the school to recognize the Garrison family, for example, the new library, as well as Sanborn and Peabody, for example, an auditorium or an athletic field. I understand this compromise will not make everyone happy, but I believe we need to move forward and not risk this issue lingering and continuing to divide us. I'm reminded by a town meeting, someone translating our town motto, strength and harmony. I believe that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. I see actually a hand up online for the first time. Marianne Maurer. I think you're muted. I don't know that I can unmute you. You're still muted.
There we go.
Oh,
Okay, how's that?
better.
Okay.
Success.
Marianne Marr, 45 Bruce Road, Concord, Mass. Thank you for letting me talk for 2 seconds. I just wanted to say that I really feel strongly and support the school committee's decision and right to keep it as Concord Middle School. Having been someone that went to the Concord Middle School as well as my children, you know, it's always been known as Sanborn and Peabody. And I feel that in general, changing the name is not something that's necessary. There are so many people in Concord that have volunteered their entire life, educators towards the children. I can think of at least 15 people that have done really amazing things in Concord and spent their lifetime giving back to our town. And I truly do not feel that we could select just one or two or three to celebrate all those people. So I'm just in strong favor of keeping it as Concord Middle School. And I liked Mr. Lauren's sentiments about celebrating and educating and maybe putting a plaque for the Garrison family and with history and making it present in the library, as well as other people like Mrs. Trella, who was a beloved social studies teacher at Sanborn for many years. Sharon, who when I went to Sanborn passed away of an aneurysm. She brought a lot of joy. I mean, I can just go on and on. So I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work. I fully support the Concord Middle School name. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, back to the room. Jeff Suarez? Suarez? Oh, Suarez.
Jeff Suarez, 45 Oxbow Road. First off, I just wanted to say welcome to Andrew. Happy to have you on the school committee. And I also just wanted to express my support for the school committee. I think this has been a challenging time. But I also think that, you know, myself and I think many people in town support Ellen Garrison and want to see the school committee, you know, like Wilson mentioned, do something meaningful to, you know, to recognize her. And I just wanted to express my support and say that, you know, we trust that you heard town meeting. That was, you know, I think a very strong statement, and that, you know, you will do the right thing to, you know, to both recognize Ellen Garrison as well as to do the right thing for the school under Dr. Hunter's leadership. You know, she spoke very strongly about the need to unify the schools, and I think there's a lot of validity to that. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about the proposal. Thank you.
And then online,
Just one more.
okay, this will be our last public comment. Online, I see Don Kupka.
Hi, thank you. Don Kupka on Devon Street in Concord. Thank you. I appreciate the work that the committee does and how difficult.
Don, can you talk a little louder?
Oh, sure. I was saying I appreciate the difficult.
Louder.
Is that better? I appreciate how difficult the job is and that you're all volunteers, and that's really important to recognize. After the town meeting, I felt I really needed to go and listen to the February 8th school committee meeting on YouTube, and the one in January that preceded it. I would highly recommend that February 8th meeting. That was one of the best public meetings I've seen in a long, long time. And I wanted to understand the rationale, the sort of thought process that you went through. And what I heard from it, Dr. Hunter, is you saying that we have had two middle schools, there was some rivalry, and unifying them is important. And you felt that nothing would unify them more than the name Concord Middle School, perhaps. And I thought, I don't know that they wouldn't be just as unified with any one name as long as they're no longer two. But leave that alone. I was trying to understand that reasoning. And then Ms. Anderson, you said that you couldn't fathom naming it for any one individual because there's so many outstanding people. And my first thought when I heard that was heartbreak for the folks at Elcott, Willard, and Thoreau who are named for an individual. And were you saying it's really wrong to do that? And if so, will there be a movement among the committee to rename those schools, maybe PS1, PS2, PS3, something like that? I don't know. When we moved to Concord 25 years ago, first thing I did, went to the library and looked up the history of our street and who it was named for, and the neighboring streets, Ebenezer Hubbard, and Hubbard Street. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have a Patriots Day. We wouldn't have a bridge at the Minuteman. We certainly wouldn't have the Minuteman statue that he funded from Daniel Chester French. I think we have a lot of legacy here, and I would ask you to just, I don't, you know, I do have an opinion about the name, but I would ask you to reconsider this thought that naming takes something away. I think it adds something. So that's my point. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone. That concludes our public comment period. We always, if you, yeah?
Can I ask a process question?
Sure.
This is my first time here. So,
Can't engage with
Yeah, quickly.
hi, Chesley Chen, 196 Williams Road. I have a process question, my first time here. So, a couple things, and maybe this is just me not knowing. I thought the commentary was going to go from 6 to 7, not 20 minutes.
Was what?
Was going to go from 6 to 7?
No,
Maybe I got that
It's always
wrong.
20 minutes.
Okay, so missed that one.
Yeah.
The second is, I was the first person to sign up on the sign-in sheet. And then I learned that we're supposed to fill out a form, and then I guess,
I don't order the stack.
I
the
guess,
stack just
well,
kind of
that's my
comes.
question.
So,
You don't
we-
order
we
the
try to
stack?
be as perfect as possible, but, like anything else, we are imperfect. So
Okay.
I apologize, and if for those of you who didn't get to speak, and we always do encourage emails, because they provide everyone equal access.
We actually don't engage with the public at public comment. I would ask that everyone not engage with each other. Can everyone please stop talking?
Right.
Please stop talking. We don't engage with the public during public comment. So our
It's-
public comment period is ended, and we're going to move on with our business meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, so we've concluded public comment, so we're going to move into our town meeting recap. The first thing I wanted to, we'll talk about that in a minute. The first thing I wanted to do was talk about just a quick recap of our Finance Committee articles. The Concord Public Schools had 2 of them, our operating budget as well as our capital budget. Our capital budget was significantly amended, as you all know. It was reduced by about to half of where we were, and both the CPS operating budget was at guideline and did pass, as well as our our capital budget. So that was good news, and I just wanted to thank the community for their support on both of those town meeting articles. Next, we'll move to, I think why everyone's here, a discussion about Article 22. So I just want to sort of frame what we took away, or I guess I took away as chair from Article 22. Obviously, this topic was of extraordinary interest to all Concordians. You can see that by the energy in the room this evening, as well as the comments from town meeting itself. So because because I synthesized a lot of what I heard at town meeting, what I wanted to do to kick off a discussion was to float a proposal to all of you on the committee for your consideration. If you'll grant me the grace to get through the entirety of the proposal, the sort of the why and whatnot, then we can open it up for larger discussion. That would, I think, be really helpful. You good? Okay, so tonight, I am proposing that the school committee rename the Ripley School after Ellen Garrison. I want to start by talking about Ezra Ripley. I've lived here for nearly half a century. I didn't even know this guy's first name was Ezra.
Sorry, just got a text. Carrie Patel just texted in, who is our regional member. We lost sound on the Zoom audience at home, so just bear with us for a second for our technical.
You unmuted it? Can you test it, please? He unmuted it.
Carrie Patel, can you hear us? Can you just send us a text?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay,
Okay, great. Okay. So I'll start by talking about Ezra Ripley. Like I said, I've lived here almost half a century, and I didn't even know what his first name was until I started doing some investigating after town meeting. Ezra Ripley was born in Connecticut and became Concord's first minister in 1778 after his graduation from Harvard. His only crowning achievement is that he temporarily united 2 Protestant factions in Concord. A video from the Old Manse that I welcome you all to look at talks about some of his other achievements, but I note that they are modest. I am concerned personally in 2024 that Concord has a school building named after a religious figure, as it does not align with our DEIB values of inclusion. Although we certainly acknowledge, accept, and celebrate our religious differences, we do not elevate one religion over another. I think that's evidenced by even as recently as the calendar work we undertook just under a decade ago. Now I want to talk about what's great about the Ripley School. It houses our integrated preschool. The integrated preschool is the first point of contact Concord students have with our public school system. The first school our Concord kids will attend will be at Garrison. The integrated preschool is literally a model of inclusion, the literal I in DEIB work that is integral to its success. Ripley also houses our STEAM lab, which is used by all students, kindergarten through grade 7. I note when you all walked in, the fields at this campus also utilize the name Ripley. So I would propose adopting the name Garrison to identify the adjacent fields, thereby exposing Garrison to grades kindergarten through 12, as CC Youth Soccer uses the grass fields and CC Youth Baseball, as well as high school summer teams, all use this baseball field. It hosts our school committee meetings, giving community members who no longer have school-age children exposure to the name Garrison, as our bi-monthly meetings will now be located at Garrison and not Ripley. And finally, it houses our administrative team, the intellectual leadership of our schools, who have emphasized and elevated inclusion and who have already incorporated Ellen Garrison into our school's curriculum because they believe in the mission of telling Concord's history's untold stories. So why I think this works. This building will provide Ellen Garrison with far more exposure than the middle school. It exposes her repeatedly to an enormous audience, all parents pre-K to 12, as well as community members. Further, when the new Concord Middle School building is a little less shiny and new, everyone will move on, and this allows her to reach community members that reach far beyond 11-year-olds and their parents. I think this plan also provides a clear answer to the question, is there room for Ellen? If the question really is there room for Ellen, I believe this proposal indicates that there is. And I am now curious as to what my committee members think of this proposal. Aisha.
So I'm Aisha Law, I'm the MECO rep, for K through 8. First, I want to say that I was in touch with Alexa, and I did tell her and some other members that I was in favor. I support the school committee with naming it Concord Middle School. I think that I'm a MECO alum from Concord, and I have a son that has been here since kindergarten. I strongly believe in community, and I think that when you go to the middle school, that's when you start to play sports and start to develop a sense of community. I think that that would be much more vital to this community to have these kids with their build a sense of community. Strong communities build strong people. I think that Ellen Garrison should be celebrated on a larger scale as a community in its entirety. I think that, I think this is Alexa's proposal I think it's amazing. It's a way to start, and I think it starts a great conversation. But I know I didn't speak to Akia before this, but I am in support of the committee in naming it Concord Middle School.
All right, anyone else have thoughts? Andrew?
I have a question.
Sure.
Would this kick off a new process?
Well, I thought about that because it's tricky. So we do adhere pretty strictly to our policies and our policy.
Peggy, can you please mute?
Our policy does indicate that should we consider a renaming of a facility, that we would have to kick off a public process that we just concluded. I would ask, if not beg, of this community to allow that process that has just concluded, where we did receive 21 names and get a lot of feedback, as well as the feedback from the town meeting, to sort of stand in as a proxy process for that. I would hope that, sort of given where we are in this moment, that the community would be in favor of that.
Just a follow up on Andrew's question, I don't really think we can, as much as it would be painful, not follow our process unless we change our policy again.
Sure. What I wouldn't want that, and I agree with you. What I wouldn't.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah.
So.
What? Yeah, and so we could, and that can be part of our discussion. We can kick off another process. I think what we learned from our process is there was really enthusiasm, genuine enthusiasm for two of those names that ended up on the list, Concord Middle School and Ellen Garrison. We could obviously see if a new process gave us different information. But yeah, we could certainly run a process one more time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have to run a process, but maybe take all of the public comment that we've had from the beginning and incorporate it and just add it in. This is definitely a time where our community's hearing, your proposal right now. I was just thinking about, later in the agenda, we're going to talk about launch and the new retail space for launch. Launch is also housed at Ripley, so Ripley actually houses pre-K to 22. So, it just happens to be at the end of our agenda, so I just bring that up. I mean, I like this idea. It is a building, it is a school, it is the hub of our everything. I mean, the superintendent sits here, all of the curriculum and instruction happens here. We're going to hire a new assistant superintendent for teaching and learning is coming up, and all of that work happens in that building. A lot of people don't know what happens in that building, but this is really kind of like the brains of the operation here. I like that idea. I think there are we can also talk about other ways if people are interested in other ways to honor Ellen at the middle school. But I think it's something that, we should just kind of go around and get people's thoughts on.
Cynthia?
This is new information to me, so
we're not voting on anything.
I know, but
even all of us, because we haven't been able to meet since town meeting, right? And
Right,
I think that's the other piece.
I don't know how to, so no disrespect to the Ripley building or what goes on here, but I don't think we can just assume that the people who so support the naming of the middle school for Ellen Garrison would be happy with the compromise. So I just don't think we can assume all that public comment gets shoved into, I think
fair.
It's a new process, and we would have to have those members of the community weigh in.
Sure.
So as a school committee, I think we usually want to hear people's views. And again, we're making this a very quick process. If we have to vote, we're going to vote on the name on the 21st?
No, well, I think, now I'm hearing there might be some appetite to run a process. I was, sort of hopeful maybe that we could circumvent it. But I hear your points about why it might not make sense to do that. So I think on the 21st, we could vote as to whether or not we want to open up a process and consider renaming the Ripley School after Ellen Garrison. That would be, I guess, what I would change the action item on our agenda to do.
Okay.
Make sense?
I mean, I guess it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, so for me, I've heard that the name of a building matters. I've heard that smaller spaces within the building don't carry the same significance and weight. So that's sort of what I took away, specifically when I heard discussion on Mr. Kerr's amendment at town meeting. So I didn't think that having a discussion about ways to compromise at the middle school itself was necessarily a viable path forward. When we talk about a building, this is a building, it has a school, it has, and again, like to me, two things were appealing. One, the idea that it might be time to re-examine Ezra Ripley's name anyway. And two, that the exposure is just so broad. When I looked at emails in my inbox, two of my sons play baseball. I mean, the word Ripley is in my inbox, 3 times a week. That could be easily replaced with Garrison. You all who get our not all of you come every week, but you all who get our agendas every other week, you're going to see that it's at the Garrison Building. I forgot, I'm embarrassed to admit it, I forgot that Launch is also housed in this building. So what I like too is your point of entry into the Concord Public Schools comes in via Garrison, and for some it will also be their exit in our postgraduate pre-K to 22 program. That to me is really meaningful. So that's just sort of the thought process about how I got here, and I just urge you guys all to think about it, and we can have further discussion and potentially a vote as to whether we think it's a good idea on the 21st. Anyone have other thoughts? Carrie?
Yeah, I just want to say, Tracy and I had the opportunity to sit down with Joe and Mike earlier today, and I thought it was a great, nice conversation about just hearing each other's perspectives. And I think one of my big takeaways is just how much there is agreement in a lot of ways. Like, we all agree that DEIB is of critical importance to this town, that we make big investments in DEIB, both in time and in money, in staffing, in training, and that DEIB in our schools is critical, that we're teaching our children to be good leaders, to be good stewards and upstanders. And we agree that Ellen Garrison is a remarkable woman. And I said to Joe and Mike earlier that the visual of the image of Ellen walking down the street during the parade, hand in hand with a young girl, a young white girl, is very powerful. And I feel like there is so much space where we agree, and I want to be able to figure out how we move forward together. And this is obviously a new idea, so I'm sort of
I get it.
Processing this, but the thing I really like about it is all of the things that you said, but I also really like that this is where we held strategic planning last year. This was where community members, select board members, people came together. I think there were 50 people who came together and talked about where do we want to see our schools in 5, 10, 15 years? What are the steps we have to take to get there? And I think there's a lot of power, a lot of meaning in that happening in the Garrison building. All that being said, so I want to think about that. I think that there's a lot of merit to this idea. But one of the things that I'm really interested in, and this obviously falls outside the purview of the school committee, so sorry, Lori, but there was a comment that was made at at town meeting that that we ought to be looking beyond just the name of the school, and that the impact on kids and is bigger than that. So thinking about an award for a teacher, an Ellen Garrison award for a teacher, an award for a student who demonstrates being an upstander. I just feel, I feel like there are ways in which we could think about honoring Ellen within our school building walls that have really meaningful and impact on individual students and kids and teachers even, and on our faculty. So that's obviously not our purview, but I do think that the conversation needs to be broadened, because if this work is as important as I believe we all think that it is, it has to be bigger than a name on a building. And that's the work I'm really interested in. So yeah, I will think about this. I think it's a really interesting proposal.
Domingos DeRosa, Boston rep. I said it in the February meeting, the importance of renaming the school, naming the school the Ellen Garrison Middle School. But from what I'm seeing, there's a lot of mixed feelings within the town. And this issue, or this matter, is groundbreaking, right? So to dedicate 20 minutes for public comment, half the room has, want to speak but can't speak. Not everyone wants to sit in front of a computer and type out an email. So folks come in to give out a statement. So my suggestion to the group is maybe we need to dedicate a meeting specifically for the naming of either or. Again, you just brought this out. Folks are going to have to think about it. You're going to also get the pushback from folks who are going to say, no, we don't want to rename this building.
So Domingos,
So we're back in the same situation. So how do we move forward collectively if we're not hearing everyone's voice? Because in my eyes, again, I don't have a vote at this table. And on the February meeting, I would have been the vote that would have put this to bed. I'm in favor for the Garrison Middle School. And the only way we're going to get folks to get on board is by making drastic changes. We talk about this DEIB like all day, but the actions, the movement on the subject is not moving anywhere. There's a lot of issues within the town that has to be addressed because it's affecting children at the high school level, middle school level, and elementary school level. These kids interact with other children the way that their parents interact with other adults. And we see this. As a black man sitting here, I see this at every sport venue I've been to, or even social gathering. There's no unity amongst the community. Within the high school aspects, you can see the diversity, but you don't feel it. The kids in the high school level don't feel like they belong here. And to introduce them to someone who is a pioneer, not someone who's been teaching swimming for the last 10 years. This is someone who broke barriers 200 years ago when the country wasn't what it is today. So to give folks 20 minutes to speak, I spoke to this gentleman in the bathroom. He had a lot to say, and I wanted to hear his comment. I got here. He was the first person here, but he didn't get a minute out of that 20. So for him to question the process, that takes me back to, you know, again, what are we really looking to do? Are we looking to just use language that we have on policies in our favor when we can? Or are we here to listen to folks who actually provide the input that is, it's crucial to hear what the town has to say, to make sure that no one's voice is left out. And again, I don't see that happening, and I'm gonna say it again, I'm an advocate for it, no matter where I go. The diversity is the only way your children are gonna be able to be successful. And I keep saying, MECO is Concord. It's not Boston kids versus Concord kids, because the language that the adults use creates that division. My son gets tired of being called a MECO kid. Oh, that's a MECO kid. Oh, she's a MECO kid. He's a MECO kid. So until we adults change the language, that DEIB is not going to exist because of the way we identify each other. So I understand this school might not mean something to everybody, but when you're coming on an hour, 45-minute bus ride to Concord, and there's nothing that reflects your community, it's a big thing to walk into a building and say, hey, I know who that lady is, just like Phyllis Wheatley. Those things matter, just like Malcolm, just like Martin. Those are the folks that we put on the agenda to speak, but we don't talk about the ones that are not on the agenda. So my suggestion is maybe we need to open it up and have a meeting that we can sit down and have folks actually put in the input, not a 20-minute session, so everyone gets an opportunity to speak.
All right, thanks, Domingos. Anyone else? All right. So with that, I'm not adjourning us, but I'm going to entertain a motion to move us into executive session.
So I move the Concord School Committee will come into executive session under Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Concord Carlisle Teachers Association and return to open session.
Second.
All in favor? We need to roll call. Anderson, aye.
Hercheck, aye.
Morano, aye.
Rainey, aye.
Rankin, aye. That was different.
It was different, I know.
All right, thank you so much, and we will be back at the conclusion of our exec session.
With that, I would like to call the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee to order. And going down our agenda, our CCHS students are not here with us tonight. They all have conflicts. Harry is at a track meet. let's see, Zaria is in the musical, The Prom, so I'm going to put a plug out for the high school musical, which is called Prom.
Felicity's there too.
And Felicity
Yes,
is there too
both the girls.
on, I think she does communications. And we've been reading Felicity's updates in the Bridge, and her sister's now writing for the Bridge. So it's been great to see that. So I encourage anyone, if you have not bought your tickets to Prom, if you're with us in the viewing audience, it is definitely worth it. It's like a Broadway show when you go to that high school, so it's amazing. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday. And if anybody on the committee wants to go, let Dr. Hunter know, and we'll have a ticket. So moving on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda is lengthy this week, so does anyone want to pull anything off?
No, but I did like Court's recommendation of just acknowledging donations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what, I was actually going to mention that we do have some donations this week, and these are all from Friends of, I believe, so it's Friends of Lacrosse, Friends of Soccer, and Friends of Football, and those are all, oh, sorry, Andrew, I started without you, sorry. Okay, what you missed was, the musical The Prom is on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we're on the consent agenda. No one has pulled anything off, but Carrie wanted us to just acknowledge our donations. So the Friends of CCHS Lacrosse, Girls Soccer, and Football, which are all booster organizations run by parents, have raised some money, and we have $1,000 coming to us from lacrosse, $500 from Girls Soccer, and $2,000 from Friends of Football to replace the padding around Memorial Field. Does that cover it, Dr. Hunter?
It does, and that completes the padding around the field, so it's going to look great for graduation, which we're excited by.
Oh, excellent.
Done for graduation, even better.
And it's safe.
And it's safe.
Well, more importantly, it's safe.
Yeah,
So,
that should have been the headline.
so with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No, just thank you to those guys.
Yeah.
Those organizations. Can't do it without you.
Yep. All in favor? Aye.
For both.
Thank you. And moving on to correspondence. So at the region, we had one piece of correspondence that we actually heard about tonight, and it was regarding AP English. So I owe one more response back. Dr. Hunter did respond. I asked her to respond for the school committee, and I'm going to send a response from the school committee also. I'll do that tonight.
Great. At Concord Public Schools, we had, when was our last meeting?
It was April
22nd.
Second.
Okay. We had some correspondence about, from the Ludlow Public Schools, just about some operational aspects of how we do our governance. Then we also had correspondence about offering help with the cybersecurity attack that we had. And then at my last count, we had about 158 emails so far in the last 24 hours about the name of the middle school.
All right. And with that, we'll move on to the superintendent chairs and liaisons update. And I'm going to turn to Dr. Hunter because her update is probably the most critical one of the evening.
So just wanted to be sure we were keeping you aware of what's been happening under the cybersecurity breach ransomware. So last Monday, we found ourselves completely without wireless accessibility. Our incredible IT team did everything they could all day to figure it out, and finally, we started to sense something else was going on. It took us days to actually understand it, and in the meantime, they built workaround networks out at each school, so we were up and functioning in the schools on Tuesday, which in hindsight is actually amazing. As we learned last week what was happening and understood more and more of what had happened and what the reaction needed to be, it's even more astonishing. We kept learning, up and functioning. So by late last week and into the weekend, we had contacted an insurance provider who we are fully insured for cyber, which is a good thing. It's costing some funds. We've been connected for almost a week now with a forensic cyber team who's been working 24/7 almost with our IT team to work through what needed to be done to first identify and contain the malware. And now we're starting to get into the recovery period. But so this past weekend, we shut everything down. They then used their cyber tools to come back into the system through the firewall, which took a while because when you shut the firewall down, you got to make your way back through. I act like I know what I'm talking about on all this. And that took all weekend, and then they were able to purge the system of the malware. The only fortuitous part of all this is it did not impact the Macintosh. So that's why the schools were able to keep up and running. That proved early that it was going to hold. They could see the malware trying to get the Macintosh, and the Macintosh just deflecting it. So we got more and more confident that we were in great shape there, which is just such a miracle. The central office is a completely another story right now, and I guess this committee especially needs to hear how we're operating here at the central office because we're so PC-based. Our server was attacked and clearly impacted. That has, we're working in very, very difficult conditions right now. Everyone's had to move over to Mac. Bob's learned a lot in the last few days. We have access.
You're Macs are like,
wow.
We have access to none of our files. We have last week, Friday, they rebuilt our fiscal system in the cloud. It wasn't in the cloud. Rebuilt that on Friday, so over the weekend we could accomplish payroll. That happened on Sunday at the townhouse with Bob's team going there because our network was completely down. So we made payroll. Let's all celebrate that for a minute because that was touch and go. That we feel good about. We have no fiscal software operating right now. We can't buy anything. We're sending people out to stores and reimbursing them with the very few needs we've been managing. So I guess that budget freeze became really literal here in the last week. We're on a really slow road back, though. So the goal is, what they're finishing up now is getting ready to repair the firewall. We've upgraded security software on everything except for, are you ready? The 2013 Macintosh laptops that we recycled at the elementary school when we were done with them at the middle school. So these machines, they're expensive up front, but we are running Macs for almost a decade in some cases. There's no operating system that actually can upgrade with that, but we keep them alive. It won't comply with the new software, so that's becoming a need for a workaround there. But anyone with an updated operating system has already gotten the new security software. What we need to do now is repair the firewall. That requires a 12-hour shutdown of the internet, so we're planning that Saturday with a little support to the musicals. We're trying to figure out how they can take tickets and not just need cash, but we don't have a choice. We've got to do this weekend. We still have some passwords we want to reset. That proved to be not as ready to go as we had thought initially, so we're going to have to do that slow because what we don't want to do is stop functioning because we, put password resets out that we can't, manage to execute successfully. Once that all happens, they can start to bring some of what they've been working on back online, like the server here at the central office. But every workstation that was a PC is now a Mac. Erin in my office is on this tiny little Mac, not getting access to her file. That's why your agenda's not updated. We couldn't get the whole thing to work, so you don't even have policies linked. I'm looking at it now. I'm like, oh, we didn't get that done. I'm telling the state I can't get certain grant deadlines done because we can't get to the information. The cascade is pretty significant, very, very significant. We're hoping to get more users into the software so we can the financial software, start to rebuild the PO system and get our processes back there. Denise is working on the employee portal, which is how people can access pay stubs, some employees put in sick time there, like all the user-friendly stuff where you self-check your own status as employee is in that portal, which is non-existent right now. Again, COVID-like, we had a new portal already built. We just hadn't rolled it out because we didn't have the time to polish it up and do it well. We're going to do it anyway in the next couple of days so employees can check their pay stubs. Today's events primarily very heavily focused around the data breach. we can see, we have evidence that they got to the server and could see folders, let me put it that way. We don't have evidence they actually got the files. That said, we've had a couple of employees with breaches in their personal worlds, and we're just going to start acting like we don't know and things could be out there. So we're going to supply them all with credit monitoring, which is cheaper than we expected it to be, hoping the insurance company will cover it. It's nominal. We can afford it if they don't. I also pushed out today how to freeze your credit accounts, how to check your credit accounts, all of that. So there's a lot of active discussion. Like we upped the concerns today when I shared that there was someone who'd had a breach last night. And I actually think that's a good thing. Related or not, everybody needed to get proactive at this point. So that was quite a bit of anxiety today in the schools, and sending information out and making sure people felt supported and had tools at their hands. I feel like we're in a better place this afternoon than we were this morning. We're staying close to the union leadership. On Sunday, we called all 8 presidents before I announced what had been happening. Nothing but support and how do we help. It's been really a collegial effort, as it always is, but it's been a big lift, and there's not a great light at the end of the tunnel quite yet because we're so impacted here at the central office. But I go home every night and sleep because, well, we're catching up on sleep too. We've been putting in very long days. The schools have been functioning. We missed one day, and it was a beautiful day, and they got outside. And then they've been back to business. MCAS has been on track. We've had to move schedules around a little bit, but we're staying pace with what we need to stay in the window. We're pulling it off, but not much fun and really unfortunate, and can happen anywhere, right? If we were pretty solid. I think we were as solid as we could be on the equipment we can afford to buy and the systems we can put in place, and it just can happen anywhere. So. And today you saw it hit the press, which we expected was going to happen too. So, great. We're all in it together, as crisis does around here.
And I think, it's important for the public to hear that this weekend, Lori and Bob and their team, they were in Concord all weekend working. They were working at the townhouse. Thank you to Anthony and Carrie. That were like huge helps. Peter Kelly has been working around the clock. Ed, Derek, Bob's staff.
The other Derek.
Yep. Yeah. Wendy.
We ordered them home last night. They had to sleep. They hadn't in days and days.
And I think that, she's very humble and she won't say this, but, we all know Lori's sleeping patterns, and I think she gets up really early, but she's been up really late. And people are working 18 to 20-hour days right now. And I think just really great gratitude for the IT staff, for the business office. Teachers got paid, staff got paid, and it's really incredible. And school still happened. MCAS still happened, and that is not a light lift. And these are things that, people don't see behind the curtain of what happens in a school district, and they send their kids off, they get on the bus, and school's wonderful, and it is wonderful. But there was a lot that happened in the past week here that is shielded from the community, so just really my sincere gratitude to the central office, Bob, to you and your office, and please send, our thanks from the school committee. Just for the incredible amount of effort, without even an ask. Denise was here all weekend. It was Greek Easter, and she opted to come in here and then go a little late. And I know I'm probably saying a little bit too much, but I think it's really is important to understand the commitment that, the staff, the employees have to our district. And when there is a crisis, they drop everything without an ask, without a thank you, without anything. So thank you.
Peter Kelly, who's sort of this quiet, I've never run crisis with Peter as the lead before, thankfully. And he was so determined we weren't going to lose any instructional days once we got back online Tuesday. And I'll tell you, this weekend was a big lift to make that happen. And he was just absolutely determined. We signed off at 11 and back on at 4, not knowing if we were going to get there, and we did. So that's where the satisfaction comes in, when we know the schools are functioning. Makes it all worth it that nothing out there was dramatically interrupted and remains that way. So
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to say, working in that world, you
Yeah.
prefer not to get recognized.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he always has said to me, he goes, when my name doesn't come up, that means we're in good shape, so.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I could certainly,
Yeah.
I've been having nightmares now because.
I'm sorry. Sure you are.
We're like, did we
Yeah.
test our firewall?
What can we do? What do we do? Yeah.
Well, and I think it's important to note, in an educational setting, we can't afford everything everybody would wish I had. These consultants came in, and they're like, well, you don't have a second firewall? We're like, no, we don't have a second firewall. In fact, the system that's running some of the current things is dated and older and chugging along. So it's been a really eye-opening experience, I think, for us to hear what they wish we had. And we're like, yeah, no, this is public school. And they're like, oh, yeah. So, sure. Yeah. Right. We're also supported by legal counsel through contract, which has been really big help with the data side of the house and making sure we're good to go there. And we're going to talk on what the longer-term plans are. Hopefully, we're weaning off of all the extra helps by the weekend. Back to figuring out how to do this by ourselves. The town's done nothing but offer help, and we're knowing they're there for us, too. Right?
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you. So, turn it over to you.
I have an update.
What else is going on?
I don't know, Cynthia, is kind of the answer.
You have an update?
Well, I have an update, a recognition, and something that I realize all should been put on our discussion. So on Friday.
Wait, can I just interrupt you because we forgot to do this? Andrew, you were out of the room. Sharon, have you met Andrew yet?
Oh.
Sharon Witt.
Yes.
Andrew, so sorry. But like literally he was out when you came in, and so this is real awkward, but
Cheers.
yes, welcome.
On Friday, I just want to commend Aisha, Tracy, Lori, Aisha, and I all attended the Metco Advocacy Day, which is normally like at the State House, but they did them sort of regionally this year.
Nice.
And so it was actually at the Umbrella. Aisha spoke, so did Zaria. We had incredible representation from our district, from both of our strong women on our. So Aisha was like the trifecta. She's a Metco alum, she's a Metco parent, and she's a Metco school committee rep. So she was hugely valuable to that discussion. It was hilarious because the first person I actually saw when I walked in was a friend of mine from high school who now is in Arlington, who runs Arlington Friends Family. It was FAM. Friends of Arlington Metco, FAM.
Friends of Arlington Metco,
She had
yeah,
a really good T-shirt on that was the part of the FAM, which was great. So it was kind of a reunion of sorts. But what they were all there to speak about was there's a gap in what Metco Inc., with Millie and her team, is asking for. In the governor's budget and what has currently been allocated through the House. So Simon Cataldo was also there. He's lucky because it's shifted into the Senate. So one of the things that was sort of the call to action at the end was urging anyone from individuals, but I was thinking collectively we could write a letter from our school committee to advocate for the full funding, and it will go to our senator. So if you guys.
To our senator.
Yes, because it's done in the House. I said to Simon, like, buckle up, and he's like, I'm done with it. Like, it's moved on, so the advocacy now is in the Senate.
Finishing on Friday or something?
I'm sorry?
They're finishing on Friday.
Yes, so we would have, we wouldn't be able to, I didn't have time to draft a letter, so it wouldn't be something that we would all be able to approve, but and I don't have a vote on it, but if we could take a straw poll, I am more than happy to work on an advocacy letter to get out on our collective behalf.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, great. That was easy. So again, thanks to Aisha. She texted me the day before and said she was going to be there. So anyway.
And it was awesome, I have to say. I have to just chime in. Lori was there, and both of our Metco directors were also there. So we did take a picture, but Lori had to go because she was in the middle of the crisis situation, so which was fine. But watching Zaria, honestly, like I think of her as a freshman when she started until now, she was amazing. She spoke from the heart. She spoke off the cuff. You did too. You didn't have anything prepared. Yeah. And excellent public speakers. they made Concord proud, so it was a great day. It was really a great day. And then I watched the whole high school reunion happen too. I was like, oh, wow, you guys are much younger than me. But it was great, so.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from listening to other MECO communities speak is that, we think that we don't have it good here. Like, seeing some of the other MECO communities only have one late bus. We have multiple late buses. We have buses on Saturdays and Sundays. So, in other MECO communities don't have that. So I think listening to them, it's not perfect, but I think we have a lot to be proud of and to be excited about.
I agree.
That's awesome.
And we did talk at one point about like maybe even hosting something here, because you were approached by, I don't know if she's in Natick or in Reading, that was looking to add a METCO rep onto their school committee.
Natick.
Was it Natick?
I think it was Natick.
Yeah, so even, maybe we host something to say like, how's it going? Like, how did you do it? How did we do it? What do you guys think? And maybe have some type of panel here, because I do think that any type of, community work on that, that's how you get it done. And even when we were looking at adding METCO reps, there were 4 districts that have METCO reps in their school committee, and that's it. And it should be every district. So if we can, maybe that can be like part of our goals for next year.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't really have any updates from any committee I liaise with. I think we were all at town meeting for a long time. Does anyone have any updates that they want to add?
I have one.
Yeah.
The CPAC Annual Awards is tomorrow. 4:30 at Willard, so I will be there if anyone.
It's Thursday. Is it Thursday or Wednesday? Thursday.
Thursday. Today's Tuesday.
They like that Willard Auditorium.
Everybody likes that.
Yeah, it's usually at the high school, but it's at Willard this year at 4:30 on Thursday, and so everyone is welcome. It's always a fun event.
Yes.
Best.
Yeah. It's actually not during bargaining. We have a short session.
No, if it was tomorrow.
Oh, if it was tomorrow.
Thursday.
Yeah, it doesn't interrupt anything.
Thursday.
Yeah, no.
Thursday, yeah.
Thanks, Carrie.
Great. All right, so on to our town meeting recap. I'm going to be a little bit brief. We all were at town meeting. Obviously, the regional budget passed, which was great. The amendment did not pass. I've had a lot of feedback from people as to, how can we make our process better? How can we be better next year? There are a few things that I would like to correct that weren't exactly accurate, especially when we talk about administrators at the high school. We have not added that number of administrators. And I think that we really need to work on communication. And I'm looking forward to collaborating with Finance Committee, with the Select Board. And I think our budget process should actually start pretty much right now. And I think that now is the time to really try and build those relationships. Carlisle Town Meeting is coming up. I've been in touch with Victor from Carlisle Finance Committee, so I will attend the Carlisle Town Meeting also. And our budget is embedded in their town meeting, so they have an omnibus budget. And so basically the Finance Committee Chair presents the whole town budget, and then it gets approved, and it's a very different process than what we do in Concord. So, there might be some room to, we had talked a little bit about that last summer, about, maybe having one budget of the town. I don't know if people in Concord have the appetite for that, but I think everything should be on the table. Because I think that, we're hearing from the town of Concord, we have to tighten up spending, which I totally hear. And I've said it before, we're going to continue to advocate for our schools and what we need. We have certain things that are beyond our control. We have mandates that are beyond our control, special education costs, utilities are beyond our control. So some things are really out of our control, but I think there's a way to come to town meeting together. We had tried to really, I had made an effort to meet with Concord Finance Committee, and I made public comment at the Select Board and the Finance Committee meeting to just really try and let's have a conversation before town meeting. And I think if we do it now, it's more effective than doing it, the month before town meeting. So any improvements or suggestions from anyone on the committee, I think that that's what we should be really talking about when we're talking about our goals for the budget for next year.
I hardly endorse beginning earlier.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to probably have a different.
Heartily or hardly?
Heartily.
Oh, I was like,
Heartily. Heartily.
Hardly. Because I do think we're going to have this is the region, but we will have a different capital planning process next year for the Concord Public Schools, and eventually we're going to see this plan or this.
You're going to see that in June.
In June.
And so I just think it's going to take more time to really build that, working with the town and the select board and the finance committee together, instead of having this sort of back and forth, always, presenting and then, so, but, I just think I'm on board with that. One thing I was thinking about but we do need to revise our facilities policy for the new middle school.
Oh, yes.
And we want to do that sooner rather than later, because it's going to kick in summer of '25, right? Potential use, but you could tell me if that's because they're going to tear down the school, that's.
Yeah, no, I'm hesitating as to how much community use we'll be ready for as we open next year. I think that's worth talking about as we get settled in. We might.
Well, that was similar at the high school when it opened. I remember they didn't have any outside groups in for a period of time until they really got moved in.
Well, they had to tear down the school.
When they have to tear down the school.
That is a thing.
That is a big thing.
It definitely is a thing.
Well, parking issue, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I know there's not going to be fields. I get that part.
Yeah. Well, and actually, the biggest user of the middle school is youth basketball, and we will be past basketball season when we transition, so.
For that year, correct.
For that year, yeah.
We want them, it might be a little nominal increase for a better facility.
Yeah, we'll see.
Have to see.
We can talk about it anyway.
I have one follow-up question on what Cynthia was saying. Is there an update on the capital process for next year? Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that you're just assuming that it will be different next year.
Townwide, you mean?
Townwide, yeah.
We're not going to do I don't think we're going to do the $900,000 allocation.
Yeah, that was my understanding too, but I just was curious if there was an update on that. Yeah.
No, we need to do it sooner rather than later.
The collective.
Just us.
Yeah. And one thing that came up, when I went to FinCom, they actually invited me to the table, which was great, and we were talking about they were talking about liaisons and how do we use liaisons more effectively. And I think that we should also think about that too, and more think about next year on committees that we'll liaise with. Is it going to the meeting, at every meeting and sitting there, or is it like reaching out like, hey, you want to grab a coffee and like let's talk about how do you interact with the schools, and really trying to beef up how we liaise? Because sometimes I think that that's where the communication breakdown starts, and if groups of people or liaisons or whatever it is, subcommittees, call it whatever, have a round table between finance committee, select board, school committee, but I think everything should be on the table, kind of to just bring us together.
And I would say it's just not for liaisons. It's encouraged, in my opinion, for people to reach out and talk to FinCom members, select board members.
Sure, yeah.
And
I think we maybe did not an overhaul, but a better definition of what the role of each liaison is, or what the different roles were of, like when we get our new Carlisle members and we do all the seating of all the different subcommittees that we're all going to belong to. I think we've done a little bit of reworking on what all those roles and responsibilities for each position, if you will, are. And I think maybe we can even take a fresh look at all of those again. All of us independently. I'm assuming they're on the drive somewhere. I'll find them and share them with you all, just so that, because this work is iterative and it does change. So, it might be worth relooking at and thinking, well, what can we do a little bit different, or what have we learned in the past few years since we've done that exercise? So that could be helpful too, just so everyone has the right expectations.
Have we ever presented a unified regional and town school budget and as like one number? It's always been separate?
We started a quick discussion that didn't really take hold this past fall.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's worth more conversation.
Yeah.
Anthony's in the room, which is great, because he and I have already chatted a little bit about how we might try to do this better at our level and the professional level too. So.
Yeah. And just so everybody knows, Carlisle Town Meeting, May 13th, there is a visitor section. So if you want to go to another town meeting, I'll be there. Lori will be there. Bob will be there. And it's fascinating to watch it, just because we just came off of Concord Town Meeting. They're both very different. So I open that up to you.
Great.
All right. All right. And that brings us on to launch, which is the.
Quick question for you.
Oh, yeah.
We'll probably seat the regional committee on the June 4th?
So I'm in contact with Sarah, and they have not yet set their next meeting. It could be, so on May 8th, they know that it's sort of their like understood obligation, if you will, to try and call a quick seat the Carlisle committee and send the representatives. So there's a chance that they'll do that before our May 21st meeting, but they have not
Could they
done
do
that.
They're not going to have the full, they have a new member coming on.
Yes.
Right. Oh, you're right.
Voting in the 21st.
Yeah, so you're right. I thought we thought there might be.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
So,
think
yeah,
we
it'll
have to
probably
just
be
wait and
June.
see, because we wait on Carlisle.
I think what you're trying to say is there have been years they've called a special meeting so they could appoint their Carlisle, Sharon's remembering this.
Yeah.
Appoint their, we're speaking for you, like you should
I
be
know,
telling the
like
story. You've appointed special you've had a special meeting just to seat the regional members so that we could get going.
Right, but they didn't do that until after the election.
Yeah, they have to wait for the
Yeah, wait for
election.
the election, yes.
It's a very late election, Carlisle, even by Carlisle.
Very, yeah.
It's really late.
I would say.
So we'll see if they call a late May meeting to make it happen faster, or if we're doing this in
Oh,
June.
yes, that's what I'm thinking, because your June meeting is after our June meeting, so it will be necessary for them, sorry, getting all the dates confused.
To have a special meeting?
They're gonna, so if we want to seat, our meeting is June 4th?
4th.
Yeah, if we want to seat and elect our leadership structure at our June 4th meeting, which I think is the goal, so that we can start looking forward, because then, with summer, I know our schedules become, challenging. It would necessitate them calling that meeting, and Sarah and I have discussed that. So I believe that she's planning on doing that, and we'll be fine.
Awesome.
All right, anything else? Are you ready to go on?
Yep.
All right, great. All right, launch the retail RFP. So you had it in, it's in the drive, and it's also in an email from Bob. So I will turn it over to Lori.
Yeah, I'm going to queue it up, and Angel's online with us so she can talk on the programmatic side and some revenue possibilities and cost savings, and Bob's here to talk on the expense side and the startup costs. So I'll throw it to him in just a minute. Just in terms of refreshing us all and helping Andrew know what we're talking about, we have been looking at retail space to propose for our launch program, which some of you heard earlier is our special needs program for students 18 to 22. The point of the program is transition and helping them build a bridge to what they're going to do next. And often the focus of that is real life experiences, vocational kinds of experiences, life skill experiences, those types of things. So the program here is now in year 3 or 4, and we've really built a strong foundation in some components of that. And for the vocational and skill-based work in the occupational setting, we've been really ad hocing that, working with connections at local restaurants and other retailers and such, and the kids are going out one student at a time. And we got really inspired. You heard this earlier in the fall. Angel and Bob and I visited programs in Shrewsbury and Westboro and really got inspired by the work they're doing there. They created retail storefronts, small ones, and the student population is staffing the retail side, doing all the back of the house work too as well, and really just motivating places to be, really inspirational settings. The communities have welcomed them and engaged them and are actually shopping there. They're not trying to make profit. We're going to be clear, we're not trying to either. Although, when you hear remind you where the property is, I think we're actually going to probably have some sales because there'll be foot traffic. The real point is that we build this experience. It makes the launch program more robust. We've lost students in this age group to collaboratives, and we want to be sure we really build this out so it's appealing, and Angel will talk a little bit more on even tuitioning kids in. So we had an RFP out, and the realtors have to respond, which is not their normal world, so that we had a lot of support. The space that we're talking about tonight is next to CVS in the Crosby's Plaza. So we've visited that. Russ has gone over, and this is where I'll throw it to Bob, to talk through the lease and the state of the facility and the work that needs to be done to exercise this vision, and then we'll turn over to the finances that go with that.
Okay, thank you. So the RFP was issued a couple months ago. Actually, it was in February. We initially had it due at some point in March, extended it. Again, it's not the easiest thing to get responses to. We did have, in order to get interest, we actually had to go look at some properties. We did find one location in Concord. This program should be in Concord. It's for our students in district. We're still going to have this space here. So having it in Concord was important. Some of the things we looked at were, and we included this in the RFP, were proximity to public transportation, proximity to parking, ideally an area that's relatively commercial. And so we did get one response to the RFP. It's a holding company of Stop and Shop. The name of the company is DAM Clearwater LLC, but it's essentially a holding company of Stop and Shop Commercial Real Estate. References have been checked. They said they're a decent landlord. On the, if you wanted to see it, there's a picture of the property on the, I think, attached to the school committee agenda.
No, we couldn't actually do
we
that.
couldn't.
But they have it in their email.
All right.
No, you have it in the email.
All technical issues.
And it's also in the drive in the packet.
And I have a picture, but I'm not on Zoom for my own technical reasons here with a Mac. So the space meets our needs. So we look, there's two elements to, there's a few financial elements to this that we wanted to highlight to you. First of all, this is a bid, and our policy says that the school committee needs to accept public bids. So it's not within the purview of me to accept it. What we received for the bid, including all the required documents, was a quote for a first-year price of $32 per square foot, which, based on the square footage of 1,943 square feet, is an annual lease cost of $62,176, which is actually a little bit less than we anticipated we would get. In addition, there's something called, it's a triple net lease. We're responsible for a share of the operating costs of the property based on square footage, so things like plowing, our share of taxes. The estimated costs on that, annual costs, are $9,657. So combined, it's about, if we round up a little bit, $72,000 in year one. The lease cost increased by $1 per square foot each year of the lease. We have a 3-year lease with the district option for 2-year renewal. So keep that in mind, approximately $72,000. To put that into context of what we think, first of all, Angel's going to talk about the program benefits. Before we get to that, just the cost of placing a student out of district is about equal to the rent, if not more.
Single student?
Single student for a vocational program. I don't know if we're responsible for transportation post-18 or not.
Oh, certainly we are. Angel, you want to weigh in on any of this? Feel free.
Yeah, I'm here.
So we would have additional. Go ahead, Angel.
No, go ahead. You go ahead, Bob.
So we would be responsible for transportation costs in addition to that. So I think with one student opting to stay in district, we don't have this type of program now that might attract students to stay in district. With one student, we'd make back the rent cost, and with 2 students, we'd have operational savings budget-wise versus, it'd be cost avoidance, but we would have savings. We also potentially have students that currently are tuitioning into our Pathways program. We have 2 that could opt to stay in this program and generate, favorable revenue to the district. So, strictly from a financial standpoint, we think this is going to be beneficial long-term. There is a upfront financial commitment, and Russ on the agenda has outlined some costs that include architect design, electrical light fixtures, bathroom upgrades, fire protection, flooring, and we'd estimate that at approximately $300,000. And those are one-time costs. So, if we had very easily, if we had one district, one or 2 students in district, we could make that up within a couple of years. And if we continue this store over time. So think of that $300,000 as a one-time investment to save money in the long term. What we would propose, and this is not budgeted, what we propose is to use our circuit breaker reserves. Again, this is the same thing we did when we think about paying for the MNHG, is not to ask the towns to pay for this, but use our reserve funds for something that will provide financial benefit to us in the future. We have currently, at the end of FY23, a little bit more than $1 million in circuit breaker reserves. I'm projecting that that'll come down to around 900,000 by the end of FY '24. If we use this 300,000, in theory, we're at 600,000, which is still a healthy balance. And we are then in a position where we're going to be saving money in future budgets. From a retail, I will say too, a couple other things is the landlord, it's typical for these types of things is during the process of doing this fit up, they don't charge you rent. So as we're getting the space ready, there's kind of a waiver as long as we're kind of making good faith effort progress on it. It's not indefinite, but we'll make this a priority. And the second part is, this is intended to be a retail store, so we're going to be buying merchandise products and selling them in the store. And our goal is to, the kind of the bottom line goal is to at least offset what we're spending to bring in and kind of break even. And then potentially over time, perhaps we offset some of the rent. We're not necessarily looking to, this is an education, education is the primary purpose of this. We're not necessarily projecting, profits. We're not projecting profits, but we're looking to have it break even, and then if we can absorb some of the rent costs, that would be great.
Can I ask Bob, what would be sold in the store? Who determines?
That you should ask Angel about.
Oh, okay. Angel.
I'll hand it over to
Hi.
Angel here.
Is that appropriate time for that? Is it okay?
Yeah, no, that was pretty much it. Well, I'll circle back to what the vote needs to be later.
So in our travels, visiting other retail locations, some of the things that stood out to us as, things that we thought would do well in Concord were things like, there was one town that we went to that were selling sweatshirts that said the name of the town in sign language. They had various mugs with school and town logos, candy, anything that actually the students who are in the program bring to the table. That we're able to sell. I think one of the key components is having a high level of student voice in the products that are sold. And so it will really come from the students.
Okay.
But really looking to sell sort of, Concord-centric items that have and highlight our flair for inclusion.
Will they sell gold cards there? No?
No.
We'll tell you where to get one of those.
Yeah. One of the things, so we had a person from Shrewsbury serving as an assistant business manager for 4 months, Pat Collins, and they rolled out a facility called Maple and Main in Shrewsbury. One of the things they said, and this might be appealing in Concord, where there's probably a lot of talented artists, but they had like pop-up shows where they open their space up to artists or people who make certain specialty foods, and they pay a small rental fee for then they have access to the space for a weekend or something. So there's a lot of interesting things.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just have 2 quick questions. One is, do we know how many students in the 18 to 22 age group are currently out of district?
Yeah, Angel can answer that.
And is there a chance that some of them would come back? You talked about how we could recoup some of the.
Yeah, that would definitely be a goal. So we currently have 4 students outplaced, and we have 2 more who we're trying to woo back to our launch program. But of course, with stay put rights, we're not sure if that's going to happen. So that would make at the end of this year 6 total. But within our pipeline at Pathways, we have 7 students over the next 2 years who will be aging up into the launch program, 3 after that, and from those of you who have been here for a while know that we've got a pretty healthy pipeline at the middle school and from the ILP program at Thoreau.
That's awesome. And then how do you see management of the store happening? Is that like a new person? Is that does it just become an extension of the launch program? Is it all student run?
Want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead. We're debating this still, so she can tell you where we are.
Yeah, we're debating it still. I think, given just, in my years in Concord, when you build a program, they tend to come. And we tend to draw students and fill the slots. So our planning would be that we would initially start with existing staff and then add more as our student population increases.
facilities we visited that are actually operating, they did have a store manager kind of position along a tutor salary schedule. So I could see us getting there. I'm not sure we need to be there at the early days because we're just building it and the student population's a little smaller, can probably make it work. I do want to name, it's a lot of ask. We're not denying that here to front this. With the tuitions, and Angel, I think we're up to 3 tuitions in Pathways. Am I right?
Yeah, and 2 more in the pipeline.
Yeah, so those alone could offset almost most of that cost. And Angel and I have this vision of, many of those are coming from one district, but if we build this, there really isn't anything quite the same in the vicinity. So I think you might draw other districts' attention locally and potentially have a real revenue source, which we're actually being asked to think on all the time from the Finance Committee. So just wanted to name that.
I think it's also important to highlight there's a really broad range of tuitions for these transition programs, these postgraduate programs. Ranging from at the very low end, $48,000 per year for a student to attend a day placement to over $100K for residential placement. Right. So the range is pretty broad, and the potential cost saving is significant.
What's the current thinking on the timeline?
Bob, what's the timeline we need to respond on the RFP?
In the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we had a 60-day window there. If you approve this tonight, I think we'll meet with Russ and see how we get everything going. He's already talked with the building departments and started to clear some of the path with any necessary permitting and getting organized. So we're ready to get started if you approve this tonight.
So maybe you could come back to us, because you're going to have to build it up, because these other programs are open beyond the school day, weekends, they pay them, which we would have to do, in my opinion. It's not correct not to pay them, and so they'd get donations to pay them. So what were we thinking about in terms of outside revenue to get us going well?
Yeah, we hadn't actually talked on that, nor had we talked about paying the students, because right now we're thinking of it as part of their program during the day. We're seeing in the 2 settings in the other communities, they're not necessarily open what normal retail hours would be. They're open during, Shrewsbury's not open on Saturdays. They're really only open 5 days a week, kind of on school hours. So it can be whatever we want it to be. So I think our goal is to stay within the normal programmatic hours and start small while we get our feet on the ground, and then keep coming back to you as we build out, as we know what direction we want to go.
And then what about additional expenses like having a credit card and blah, 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 just.
Like transportation, is it like, I assume we would have to get the kids to and from?
And we already do some transportation with the launch program, so it's embedded in the program. They go back and forth to a lot of different places already, including 2 who go to community college for part of the week. So we're pretty well set up for that, at least with the number of students we have right now.
I think it sounds awesome. I think it's really, really exciting on a lot of levels, like creative and interesting, great for these kids, great for the community. I love the idea of a store.
I know.
I love the community aspect.
Yeah, totally. And when would when could it open?
How long do you think that would
take? I don't want to answer.
You don't want to answer that. That's fine. I was just getting really excited about it.
We don't know what we're going to run. Who knows?
There's a lot of big.
They have to be things that are approved by the fire department.
Right.
We obviously want to get it up and running as soon as we can.
Right.
But do you think this year?
We're just going to work on the tasks we need to work on, and then we'll provide.
I've got a 6-month timeline in my head he hasn't heard, but I would love to see us. I would love to see it in the late fall. Hoping that's.
There's going to be a lot of people coming here.
Yeah.
No, it would be great. We just.
I know it's a lot. I know.
We will need to come back with certain things like. As we do this, maybe we probably have to create a separate revolving fund for it. We have to check into issues like, do we need to pay taxes? How's the tax going to work out on sales?
Right.
And then I don't know if I mentioned the separate revolving fund, some of the expenses. So there's a lot of things to work out.
So the insurance will be covered under our current policy?
It'll be an extension of it.
An extension or additional to it.
But I assume the property they covered the property insurance.
They cover property. We would cover all the things we typically cover.
So approving this is just, it's not executing the lease, right? You're just going.
So what we're asking is the school committee, the motion, which I have to read here.
I have it.
So the motion, well, just to explain what it is for you to approve awarding the bid it's the only bid we received. This is an opportunity that will be gone if we don't respond to it. I said 2 weeks, but it's really, they're hoping for an answer tonight. They have other people interested in the property. And then give us the right to negotiate a lease with them. I don't know if there's pieces of this that we can look at the cost that I've estimated, whether it should be their responsibility or ours. I mean, we'll do what's fair. All we want is what's fair. We're not looking to get anything extra. But so some of these things I might look at and think maybe they should.
TMI, yeah, they can pay for some of it.
Yeah, and I don't know, until we walk through that process, we don't know. But so what we're asking is for you to give us the ability to work with our district council and negotiate and execute a lease with the awarded bidder.
And then working capital, like you have to buy some inventory, right? So that would come out of
our circuit breaker, which is
also
we have we have a. I should probably share, like we have a finance presentation on kind of budget, but this is funds we receive for reimbursement for excess special education costs, and we carry a buffer amount, which is best practice, and we could dip into that and draw it down a bit, so we wouldn't have to use our budget funds.
Cool.
All right.
Great. Any other questions? And it was attached to the agenda, but it is okay to say where it is, right?
She said.
Yes, okay. She attached it to us, just for the public.
Yeah,
It's
I
right
did
next to
mention-
CVS.
I mentioned
So where the old dry cleaners was. And I think that's I think it's a great location.
It's a great location.
So many kids walk to that area. They walk from the high school. The middle school kids are there. Like,
Yeah.
they do use that area a lot, so that'd be great.
As does the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, great, thank you. All right, so moving on to our policies. Lori, yes. Lori sent the email, but not everyone has a computer here, so, because we can't, so maybe if you can share.
And I'll just
Did you have your
high
computer?
level.
No. Just high level, yeah.
I looked at it, yeah.
Yeah, we are hoping you'll consider this first reading as ad hoc as it's evolving into, because these are two policies, and I guess this is the prelude to the fact that we need a bigger policy discussion. We were just cited on outdated policies by the state during the food service review, because
They're out of date.
you all know this, well, many of you know the state of the policy work has taken a long time. So as we made our way through the big book, it's taken us 10 years to do that. And while we've kept up with really most of the important policies, we haven't managed all of them, as this indicates, and we haven't done a general review. So I think this committee's going to need some discussion on how to, really update where our policy work is at, because we've definitely fallen behind. So these two were cited in our food service review over the last month, and we are in need of providing corrective action plans to the state that were due Friday, but we had to ask for an extension because of the cyber stuff. What we're suggesting is that we move to the MASC version, which indeed does address everything the state noted to us. When we look at the wellness policy, you'll see there's significant pieces there to what wellness guidelines need to adhere to. We've had more of this, and it's slid off, especially as we came back from COVID. So I think this is an important piece with the types of things sold to our students, as well as the wellness committees. Is the two big things that they noted to us, that we have a high school wellness committee that began this year. We're putting one in place at K-8. So those were the two major pieces they asked us to consider and work on putting into place fairly quickly, as well as bringing this policy to you. So that's the wellness one. The meal charge one, MASC does not have what I'm about to reference, which is why we should adopt theirs. We still have a clause in ours that says if there's delinquent meal charge balances, that we restrict things like graduation and things like that. We can't do that. And so we need to remove that language, and MASC has already done that. So if you look at this language, it's much more generic and broad in terms of how we manage defunct collections. So I'd like to bring those back for second reading in 2 weeks, and we can bring you the comps between the current and the changes.
Wait the 2 weeks?
Yes, I told the state that we were talking first tonight and then hoping for a vote in 2 weeks.
So the recommendation is to adopt the MASC policies for ADF and EFD. So maybe we'll just get out like
Yeah, we'll do the
cover each
comps
one,
when we're
yeah.
back a little more
Yep,
functional.
totally fine.
Hopefully that's next week sometime.
Okay, thank you. I think we're actually missing an action item on here.
Yeah.
We're missing the RFP for launch.
Oh, the vote.
So-
Yep, it was in the memo.
It's in the
so we
memo,
didn't-
so,
sorry.
so it's just not on the agenda, but we know that we're going to vote on that. So let's start with the CCHS early release dates. We've already approved our calendar. The early release dates, they're going to be 10, 115 days, and 3 early
PD
days?
paths.
PD paths. So just the same as we had this year, so this is just a formal motion to approve that.
You've approved the PD paths. These are the 10 that are just the high school. They get out at 1:15 like they did this year. The one thing I'll note, we had a lot of feedback, which I think you've heard from the students about lunch not being in that. With the collaboration of the CCTA, we've reworked the schedule, and we can get lunch in on Wednesdays, and everyone should feel better about that that early release with lunch now added in, and we can make 990 and still do it. So collaborative problem solving there.
Okay, would anyone like to make that motion?
I don't have it in front of me.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the CCHS early release dates for 2024 and 2025 as written.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then the second motion, which was attached to Bob's memo that I have in front of me, I would entertain a motion to accept the proposal submitted for the CCRSD retail space RFP from the sole bidder and to authorize district administration to work with district council to negotiate and execute a lease with the awarded bidder.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It's awesome.
And does anyone have the exec session motion in front of them? Okay, I would entertain, okay, go ahead.
Want me to do, okay.
Yes.
The Concord Carlisle School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Concord Carlisle Teachers Association and not to return to open session.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Oh, roll call, sorry, we have to roll call, it's exec session. Roll call.
Anderson abstain.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Uh-oh, you threw us off.
She threw us off. You can just say.
Project I.
Percheck, aye.
Morano, aye.
Rainey, aye.
Rankin I.
Aye.
All right, with that, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Oh, I'm going to text Carrie, yes.
Send you the link to tickets.